Real questions, real answers for real life. Come on in and pull up a chair. You're at 1850 Main Street with Michael DelGiorno and David Zanotti.
Is there about to be a major disruption in the 2024 presidential campaign? There is if RFK Jr. has anything to say about it.
Oh, man, here we go again. How come ever since I got to know you, I can't get the word Kennedy out of any conversation? What is going on with you? Are you like, what's this train you're riding?
I can't tell you. It's just been uncanny since birth.
I remember the first time I walked into your house, there's like the Kennedy room on the right-hand side. There's the statues.
Have I ever explained that to you? I guess it was my initial fascination with where, that pendulum between John and Ted, and then the change of the party from John to what it is today. It's unrecognizable in a lifetime. And so that got me looking. And then, I guess there was it was a major in him, a minor in conspiracy theories and assassination. But I think they both kind of combine. But it just became a pursuit of passion for me.
It's a captivated time of history. It's totally
absolutely.
Captivating.
And then the other part was, such a flawed, moral, personal man and such an unflawed, perfect, smart leader. When I started going through hundreds and hundreds of hours in the Kennedy Library, I can tell you this, for all the things you hear, he was always womanizing, or he was always drinking, and he was mixing drinks and pills, and his doctor was shooting him up every day. Not just the Cuban Missile Crisis. In every audible case in the Kennedy Library, he's the smartest guy in the room. And he did.
Yeah, and those are not edited tapes.
No,
either.
And he did something you would love. He often spoke loudest in asking questions. I think if you had the same pursuit, you spent those hours with Washington that I've spent with Kennedy, and I think we would both arrive at the same place. Both men were very extraordinary.
Yeah, it's a remarkable period of the presidency. And so then everybody knows the history, but it's amazing to me. As each day goes by, I realize not just, how it's like the grass of the fields. The prophet Isaiah talks about man is like the grass of the field. The wind blows over it, it's gone. I mean, we got people coming and going every day here. But what we've really lost in our country is a common shared history. And so people come away, they get out of school, they've got very different expectations of what the world looks like and what America looks like. We've lost a transmission of our common core history.
Well, there is, obviously John F. Kennedy was the first televised president. I mean,
big deal.
News conference, very big deal. So now you have to have the charisma, the depth of knowledge to be on the fly. You have to have the sense of humor, the ability to deflect. He was flawless at all of that.
Now, see, that was what I wanted to ask you the last time we were together. I forgot to it. I didn't get to it. All right, he was the first television president. Of course, he's talking to the first generation that cradle to grave had TV. All right, but the boomers are the first ones. So here, it's all coming together at the same time. And let's face it, it was Camelot. Mm-hmm. I mean, go back and look at the black and white footage. I mean, these people were they were a magazine 24 hours a day. I mean, it was just, they were Vanity Fair. They were GQ. They had the whole thing going. Now, here's my question. And I meant to ask you this the other day. If you put Ron DeSantis' policies in a much more attractive central casting package, wouldn't he be the nominee in a minute?
If people were focused on their republic, their families, their future, what they believe, rather than the personalities of political celebrities, of course they would. In fact, where I thought you were headed was, if you took the positions of Ron DeSantis, I think we could lump some other ones in there, but Ron DeSantis is one of the leading candidates, and you put that with John F. Kennedy, they would overlap perfectly. John F. Kennedy would be a very right-wing, by his own party, dangerous, nativist, bigot, misogynist. Catholic is what they attacked him for then, but just Christian. He would be an extreme right-wing conservative by today's standards. And he was doing it in 1960. Now, here's the other thing that people forget. I always bring this up because Richard Nixon ran as the liberal. John F. Kennedy ran as the thoughtful conservative. It wasn't popular even then, especially within his party.
But look at what Nixon ended up doing with wage and price controls. Would Kennedy have ever gone to a national wage and price control policy? Never, not a chance.
No, John F. Kennedy, upon his death, what he was really waging war over, first, he was very concerned with what was happening in Vietnam and Laos. That was a big concern. And don't forget, we learned this from the Cuban Missile Crisis. It was birthed in John F. Kennedy's betrayal at the Bay of Pigs. He didn't trust generals. And if John F. Kennedy isn't killed, Vietnam does not become, that much Oliver North had right. Vietnam does not become what it became under Lyndon Johnson. The other thing that doesn't happen is the Great Society. John F. Kennedy, right up to his death, was fighting for tax cuts and trying to explain to liberals, when you tax people, that's money out of the economy.
But if his dad hadn't bought the votes in Cook County, he never would have been president anyhow.
I thought we were finally going to have a meaningful conversation. And you got to go. By the way, I was in Cook County. Where was I wasn't born yet.
All right. So now here we are. Fast forward. Let's face it. The hottest news that's come out in weeks in regards to the presidential campaign coming up is RFK's about to declare a campaign as an independent.
You know what it reminded me of? First of all, it depends on what you go by. All we have from RFK is the video.
Yeah.
And I could read it to you verbatim. The themes of the video are simply this. I'm going to be in Philadelphia on October 9th. And if you've never come to one of my rallies, come to this one. Then he gets into hope.
You won't be sorry.
Yeah, then he goes into hope and real change and corruption. By the way, he's very specific at the executive branch. Remember when we paraphrased that if we get a Joe Biden versus Donald Trump rematch, it's one's indictments versus the other's indictments, or corruption versus corruption. So that's a theme. But he also says, and the corruption at not just the executive branch, but at the congressional level as well. And that we need a national transformation. And it needs to be based on, you don't think this rung a bell with me? Based on the goodness of the American people, not politicians, not partisan politics, not two corrupt parties, but based on the well-being and goodness of the people that deserve a national transformation, and that there must be a path to victory. That's it. He never says anything about, or even an inkling that he's hinting towards running as an independent. That's what the media has done with it, as they paraphrased him as coming from a political dynasty and being an anti-vax activist, which I think is extraordinarily inaccurate that he was anti-vax.
Well, now I just was reading articles today about how the people on the right, and of course some of these people on the right, I'm looking at different publications that are clearly, and without apology, right-wing sources. And some of the people they have writing on this, I look at them, I go like, how long have you been out of school? I mean, like, are you still bagging groceries on the weekends and doing writing on the side? I mean, where do you, some of the people who today, across left and right spectrums, who are invited to write opinion or interpretive pieces on the news, it's stunning to me. But let's okay, so we know there's a lot of stuff going back and forth.
We used to have a radio station I competed with in another market, and they would always do with their voice guy. Coming up Tuesday morning at 7:30, a major announcement. Now, you do something like that, you better have a major announcement. And then Tuesday would roll around and it'd be, we've got tickets for you to go see Phantom of the Opera on Broadway. You know, you burn people with that.
Yeah.
And so the only reason why I'm splitting hairs is, you know, he was very careful to say, I'm going to be in Philadelphia. If you never come and experience the uniqueness of our rally, it's believe it or not, he doesn't use terms to frame things like Donald Trump. He comes right out and explains, we're hopeless. People are frustrated. They don't trust. They're almost getting an apathy over all this. I can restore your hope. I can bring us a national transformation and real change. But let me tell you the path in which we're going to have to do it. Now, the speculation becomes, if you think both parties are just as corrupt as some of the politicians have been, the pathway to victory is not waiting for Joe Biden to step aside or challenging him because the party won't allow it. It's most likely to be independent. I mean, I'm going to grant you that. But those words never left his lips. The assumption is he's going to announce he's independent, and I actually think he will.
A lot of Americans who had previously given up any hope that real change would ever come through the American electoral process have begun to find new hope in my candidacy. And I understand the deeply felt concern that people have about the way corruption has overtaken our government. It's in the executive branch, it's in Congress, it's in the leadership of both political parties. And so some people feel a kind of cynicism alongside the hope. Or they lose hope entirely because they've been disappointed so many times. I want to tell you now what I've come to understand after 6 months of campaigning. There is a path to victory. The hope we are feeling isn't some kind of trick of the mind. We all recognize that there's a genuine possibility of national transformation, and its source is the goodness of the American people.
So let's unplug all of the stuff and just talk process for a second, because the youngsters that are writing on the right and the left who don't have a lot of background or experience, have not been through 10 presidential campaigns. They just don't know what they don't know. They're all speculating he's going to take votes from this person, vote from that person, blah, 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 blah. Let's just stop. The reason I wanted to talk about his lineage, his uncle and his dad, and the Kennedy name, is because the man has obvious name recognition. Here's fundamental politics 101. If no one knows your name, you don't get elected. Another thought, if 50% of the people don't know your name, you don't get elected. If 100% of the people know your name, you already have half the campaign bought and paid for, because the first half of any campaign is establishing name recognition and who the person is. So this is not a small campaign because of the name. Secondly, this guy's no dummy. Now, I'm not shilling for him or working against him. I'm just saying he's no dummy. If central casting had been able to repair his voice so that it wasn't an awkward thing to listen to, and it is, and he knows that, and it's humanity, it's real. That may play to his favor, it may not. But if he had a pristine voice right now, he would be the biggest political threat to either party, because when he talks, he sounds like he knows what he's talking about.
If the American people are up to the duty of this hire, he should already be that.
Now, here's the next piece of the equation, is he is pointing out, whether he understands it yet or not. Now, see, Trump knew this to a certain degree. Mm-hmm. Does Kennedy understand it even better? He can do the math. He's not stupid. He represents a disruptive technology. Now, Ross Perot impacted an election, and people will contend that he cost George H.W. Bush his reelection. There have been others. Ralph Nader has had a role to play. There have been John Anderson. You can go the whole way back, go back multiple presidential elections and see the role that presidential candidates play as spoilers. But we have never been in a position where there have been more people dissatisfied and not participating in either political party or either primary. The numbers have never been what they are today.
It's interesting you said that. You can see I'm smiling. Is this a Perot? That's worth dusting out. In the case of Ross Perot, you had disgruntled Republicans, especially conservatives and non-establishment Republicans that were disgruntled. And this is remarkable because I think H.W. Bush, first George Bush, one of the best resumes, because I want to talk in a minute about natural pathways that don't exist for any of these candidates, which gives RFK a chance, traditional pathways and the political climate. But in the case of H.W. Bush, that's one of the best resumes ever.
Sure.
Headed up CIA, House of Representatives,
beat Ronald Reagan in the first two primaries, and then Reagan
vice
took him out.
president. Yeah.
Right.
So he was everything. Then coming out of the original Gulf War, he had a 90-something% approval rating, which is,
in January.
We'll never see over 50% again, I don't think, in the history of America. And then boom, loses to Bill Clinton, who was riddled in scandal. By the way, scandal hit Gary Hart. Monkey business was the name of the boat. Girls on his lap. He's history. War hero Gary Hart, gone. But Clinton survives. So America was very divided. And then here comes Perot. I'm not political. I'm not this. I'm a businessman. We're a bad business. Let me fix this business. That had the Ross Perot effect that gave Bill Clinton the election. It took more from disproportionate. But I don't think that's this. Because, we're not looking at like a resume. Joe Biden is a lifelong member of Congress. That's it. Never been a governor. In the case of Donald Trump, he was a reality TV star, ran as an outsider, was a president, and he's got all the Democrats passionately against him, and he's got a portion of his own party that would like to move on from him. And then he's got about 35% of his party that doesn't want anybody on earth but him. So I don't think we can translate RFK to Ross Perot. I don't think it has that effect because there's a good portion of those that love Donald Trump that if they give him time would love RFK for the same reasons. That's the difference.
Perot did not draw from both sides. There's no doubt about it. But Kennedy is presenting himself as a disruptive technology. He is on to the real culprit here, which is the rabid partisanship. And I know this sounds like other people are saying it. I don't know other better words, so please listen to the whole sentence. This is a situation where it's the total absolute uniparty, where the Democrats and the Republicans both compete every day to control the federal budget. And they use the mechanisms of the House and the Senate to do that. They basically are controlling the society through funding the administrative state. And somehow they partner with the presidential administration, whichever one it is. They're in control. It's them versus everybody else. Kennedy is prepared to present himself as a disruptive technology against that system. He is ready to take what Donald Trump hinted at.
Right, and master it.
And master it with intelligence.
With the focus on us.
Compassion, class, and all of that stuff that Donald Trump doesn't have.
And a focus on us, not himself.
Yeah, and this is
our potential, not his resources.
I'm telling you, this is a disruptive technology. Now, that's the reality of the politics of the moment. Does he get it? I don't know.
I think he absolutely gets it. By the way, I just want to add one other thing. Don't forget, 70% of Democrats don't want, well, it's just under 70% want anybody but Joe Biden. These are Democrats. Over 73% of them don't believe that he should run for election or could survive a second term, and that he should step aside.
What are Trump's numbers?
We talked about the success that Christie's having because he's going for the 65% open lane. Robert Kennedy seizes a 65 open lane in both parties. This is how you destroy the two-party system.
Okay. Now, see, this is the part where we've not seen before in our lifetime.
No.
Now, you say, well, wait a minute. You can't destroy the two-party system by simply electing an independent. No, that's exactly right. You can't. But might it be the moment? Then we got to get into the question about, okay, is the guy electable and is he going to be on the ballot and blah, blah, blah. And then that's the next point where what will end up happening is America will all show our basic fundamental collective ignorance on how you elect a president. How do you get on ballots? What states are winner take all? What state? I mean, look, you and I ran electoral college maps in 2016, 2020 on major radio broadcasts nationwide. We were very, very involved in the 2016 election. In fact, the stations that we were working with iVoters called the presidential election 2.5 hours before the networks did because we had better numbers than they had. We had them from the ground. So we're talking about how this system works. Most people still don't quite know how it works. But in those maps that we were putting together, you and I started the night virtually with Trump versus Clinton tied. It could have come down to 3 congressional districts that are awarded their electoral votes of 1 based upon that district's vote. It could have come down to 2 in Nebraska and 1 in New Hampshire. It could have come down to 3 congressional districts. Mm-hmm. Now, the last presidential election for Trump, 2016, that he won by about 40,000 votes. Biden defeated him with about 40,000 votes in 5 states. What happens if RFK Jr. gets on the ballot in those 5 or 6 states and pulls 3 of them off the Electoral College map?
Well, there's 2 ways. People will look at this and say, well, what would this do to the overall popular vote? You're astute. We have an Electoral College. The map is what matters. To your point, I think RFK is first of all, RFK could potentially, we saw this movement in New York, especially with the governor's race in New York. Do you know how close we came to having a Republican governor in the state of New York this past cycle?
Yeah.
I never thought I'd say that in my lifetime. I'm not so certain with a name like Kennedy. And if he gets enough attention and the media plays fair, which they probably won't, he could bring Massachusetts into play. He could bring New York into play. But here's where I want to hone in. Let's look at those Great Lakes states that made it to where you and I weren't waiting for Arizona or Nevada by the end of the night against Clinton.
Yeah.
I actually think he could. I know how independents think in Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, I think he muddies the water and tips the scales for someone. I actually think he could win Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin. And I wonder how well he'll do in Illinois, New York, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts, and some other areas we hadn't thought about.
All right. So just we're going to be talking about this a lot more, but just to understand the math, If you've got 3 candidates that are all major candidates, you've only got 100% of the pie. If the other 2 candidates each get 30 and one guy gets 40, the guy with 40 wins. It's that simple. How many votes does he have to have in a state to win? So this could be the disruptive technology.
And target smartly your time in those states. I want to just make this one point. I don't know that he's going to announce he's going to be an independent. I suspect the media might be right on that. I'll let everybody judge, and we'll put a link to the full video for yourself. I think he speaks to me as an American who is frustrated, losing hope, no longer believing in real change and national transformation. I have given up on both major parties. I now believe they're a part of the problem, not the solution. He said a lot of things in this video that spoke to me. He's going to the city of brotherly love on October 9th, and it may be to announce that he's going to run as an independent. But what I thought was distinctly different, at least from the video, I haven't had the rally yet, is how different he is than Donald Trump. RFK is focused on me and my family and our republic and our future. Donald Trump's always been focused on himself and that he will deliver and make America great for us. We'll benefit from it, but it's about him. That's what makes me feel like there is no way for, I mean, you could make a case politically that Trump is bending and compromising on abortion. That can make him closer to RFK, and it's the only thing that they're different on. I don't sense they can unite. And I said this months ago with you, that it's because RFK wouldn't have him. And I think, but what if they could mend their fences? What if the trajectory of RFK heading towards the conventions is he's a real player in this electoral college map and the popular vote? Donald Trump, as long as these other candidates stay in, will get the nomination, but he's going to be a very weak candidate, just the way Podesta and Soros want him. What if, while they're thinking about a bait and switch with Joe at the convention, maybe with Gavin Newsom, what if the ultimate play is Donald Trump, who's never really been a Republican, and with the 35% that love him, he's above the party, uniting with this, the 2 disruptive technologies unite. It's not only a pathway to victory for both of them, it is a pathway for the destruction of the 2-party system. And that may be how it has to happen.
Maybe not.
What is that, Lee Corso? Not so fast. Why do you say that?
Donald Trump doesn't think that way.
Oh, I think we're in agreement. Yeah. But if he did.
So the hypothetical is just, it's not even, I don't think there's a chance.
But it would be the strongest path for both of them. Look,
maybe not.
Here's an interesting way to look at it. Who does Donald Trump go to? It's got to be Kristi Noem at this point. You can't pick anybody on the stages of these first 2 debates. They're all damaged goods. Do you know who the most undamaged good person might be? RFK. And the most dangerous to the Democrat Party, because he can say things to Democrats no one else can.
Or Youngkin or Noem. You're right. But then let me flip it on the other side. What's RFK Jr.'s biggest problem?
Corruption.
No. Getting a vice presidential candidate to run with him. Who's he going to pick?
The conversations are just getting started. To get connected, check out 1850mainstreet.com. We don't data mine anyone or sell your information. Subscribe today so you don't miss a single conversation. We'll see you next time here at 1850 Main Street.